Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you're joining us today in today's live lecture, coming to you again from Nkolo Mahadum Wisdom University. Today's date is for Market Day in the Igbo lunar calendar and 11/11/2025 in the Roman Catholic calendar. Remember, at Nkolo Mahadum, we always advise you to use your naturally given common sense, which we call akonuche in Igbo language. And also, we are primarily set up to decolonize your mind. That is to give you the correct information from an Igbo man, from Biafran and African perspectives. And that is why we encourage you to always subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook, TikTok, and Twitter. And you'll be glad that you did. And please also like, comment, and share. Share it to everybody so that everybody can be educated. This is an university, Nkolo Mahadum Wisdom University, where we bring information to you from the Igbo man, Biafran, and African perspective. We want to encourage you to see things from how it concerns you and not how it concerns other cultures. Every culture protests their own. And that is why you can agree that we are Igbo-centric or Biafran-centric and African-centric in this Nkolo Mahadum Wisdom University. And today, we are bringing you a special title, a special interactive section titled, What Happened in the Nigeria-Biafran War of 1967 to 1970. And we have a well-educated public analyst, Keny I'nugo, who specializes in media psychology and public policy. If you understand his area of specializations, you will know that he is well knowledgeable, very well, highly trained, highly experienced to discuss every issue around the world concerning media. He's a media specialist and public policy professional. And so he'll be joining me today in a few minutes to discuss and bring to you a wide variety of information concerning the Nigerian-Biafran Civil War. So thank you for joining us. Please share this lecture to get to everybody as we move along. And having finished this introduction, I will now bring in our guest, our public analyst, specializing in media psychology and public policy, Mr. Keny I'nugo, to join us in the program. Mr. Keny, thank you very much for joining us today in this interactive section to discuss what happened in the Nigerian-Biafran War of 1967 to 1970. Like I have said earlier, Mr. Keny is a public analyst who specializes in media psychology and public policy. He has all the knowledge it takes to educate us on everything that is happening in the world, but most importantly, from home. Mr. Keny, you are welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much. Do you have one or two things to say to our listeners before we get into the lecture?
First of all, I want to thank you for having me again and to continue to have me as time and chance permits. As for the listeners and viewers, our expectation is the time will come when we interact at the level of you calling in. That hasn't come. When the time comes, we'll do it. The topic today is on the crisis in Nigeria between a particular time that led to the war, the breakaway of the eastern region to the Republic of Biafra, and then the things that happened during that time. Obviously, Some of you will say, oh, how old is he? How did he know about the war and all that and all that? It's all welcome because they are all true. How old was I? What was my education? What was my environment? What are the things that I could see and record at that time? And then what are the things I read up? Because I couldn't have been everywhere. But I was somewhere. And I can tell you right away, if you were born in Biafra and you heard that bomb, or your mother who was giving you breast heard it and threw you away in order to run away for her life, you experienced the war. So, having said that, I'll ask us to keep an open mind. And like I said, I have a book on it, and some arrangements have been made. We want to conclude the arrangement because it's a more than $1 million experience for a child in Biafran army, in Biafran environment, and the war that he wasn't qualified to go into. But then he went and saw and recorded. And you have the privilege of hearing it from the horse's mouth, not a horse, but from the original source for some of the things that we experience, or some of the reasons why Biafra went to war, why Nigeria wanted to keep them back, and having succeeded in keeping them back, and having even declared there's no victor, no vanquish. Some of those experiences, some of those euphemisms are still playing out today in Nigeria. So the question is, why did Biafra go to war? Why did Nigeria try to stop them, or actually stop them from doing so, if Nigeria of today is no better than Nigeria of pre-war?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I have one question for you. We have heard about this Aburi Accord, Aburi Declaration, Aburi Conference in Ghana that happened between 4th and 5th of January 1967. If the Nigerian government have agreed to that conference in Aburi, that will have given everybody who they call restructuring or regional government or autonomy at that time. Will this Nigerian-Biafran war ever occur if they have obeyed that Aburi Accord that they agreed in Ghana?
Well, hindsight is always 2020, as they said. Hindsight is perfect because now you can say what I could have, should have done, but you didn't. I would have. I could have.
That's right. That's right.
I should have, but you did not. And that's part of why I am, though restrained, but reluctantly talking this Biafra. I don't talk Biafra. I don't even want to hear it because it hurts me both ways. Any which way you look at it, it hurts me. If I'm telling the story, people will ask me questions. What do you know? How all that? If I don't tell the story, I'll be feeling bad inside of me. But I thank God that the events of today is panning out to show whether Biafran escapade, the Biafran experience, the Biafran adventure was a good one or not. We're still saying the same thing. Leave people to live freely in a so-called one Nigeria. We are still asking the same question. And the truth is not, it's out there everywhere. But no, some people don't want to look at it. And we'll find out who are those people that up till this day in 2025, we are still talking about unity in Nigeria. We're still talking about security. We're still talking about who came from where. It pains me. It really pains me because I want to be able to have children who will go to Kaduna and be a mayor of Kaduna, just like I had friends from everywhere, from Bomosho, from Kafancha, from Kontangora, from Benue, Boko, from Calabar. when I was going to high school, elementary school, actually, pre-war. And we didn't know who came from where. We just know the street where you live. He lives in Arochukwu Street. He lives in Kano Street. He lives in Calabar Street. And that's all. Sometimes we played games, soccer, against each other. People of Kano Street, people of Calabar Street, Mission Avenue. And that's all. That's the only division. But now, when you say, myself in particular, I will tell you, if you say this is a combination of, say, a board of directors, how Nigeria has brought me to, I will begin to say, who is who? Where is he or she from? Is he a male? Is he a female? Well, yes, I do, because Nigeria has given that mindset to me. If it's not because of the thank God for the subject of psychology that kind of helped me to checkmate some of these mindsets that most people are still living deep into. Many people have not dug themselves out of, this is my own, this is our own, that's us against them in the issue of Nigeria.
So you will say that maybe because of the open-mindedness of the Igbo man,
yes,
that was why Nnamdi Azikiwe is fighting for that type of Nigeria, where even a Fulani man was a mayor of Enugu before independence, and also Zik's party went to the West and won in the West. You will agree that maybe that is the type of Nigeria Zik was fighting for, was hoping for, where anywhere you come from, you can be anywhere, wherever you, any part of Nigeria that you go to, not knowing that Obafemi Awolowo was fighting for Yoruba, while Sadano of Sokoto, Ahmadu Bello was fighting for the North only.
Okay, let me come to that, but before
Zik have something different. That's what I'm trying to observe from what you are saying.
Yes.
Because the Nigeria Zik was fighting for is not what we are having right now.
No, it's not. But let me, I got a little excited, and I didn't quite talk Aburi. Our friends, our brothers on the other country, Ghana, when they saw what was happening, and they had a coup themselves before even Nigeria's coup. And they know already that the countries were all shaking. And the head of state of Ghana at the time, it was Afrifa. Oh, yeah, I believe so. He now called Nigerian leaders and said, come on, brothers, let's talk about this thing. And they went there, they talked, they agreed. There were issues that were discussed. And they all agreed that there will be, at the least, in summary, there will be a confederation, meaning east to the east, west to the west, north to the north, midwest to the midwest. That was the agreement. So when they came back, like you already took it and ran with it, they agreed, but the agreement was not implemented, actually. Because if it was implemented, Eastern Nigeria will be on its own, Western Nigeria will be on its own, and they all contribute to the federal purse. And they determine on how to, I think it was supposed to be a rotational presidency. And that is what would have allowed everybody to, by now you would have seen that almost every major and second level population in Nigeria would have presented a president at the center. And the people we grew at their level. Aburi was God sent. But up till now, people are still making it look like it was no big deal. It was the biggest deal. Biafra should have taken it. I mean, Nigeria should have taken it. They will end up with it one way or the other. And they're going there now. But people are not, what they're saying now, whether it's going to be by zone, 12 zones, 6 zones, or is it going to be the first 12 states, or is it going to be the first 3 regions? or the second four regions. Whichever way Nigeria is going to split, I hope not. But if it does, it's better than what we have now.
Okay, so when
Aburi would have been, like I said, now let me link up with what you said about Zeke. It is true that some Igbos today think that Zeke was stupid, but that man was a sage. And he suggested so many things to keep Nigeria one. As a matter of fact, one of the things from our discovery that caused a rift between him and Chief Awolowo was that issue. Because Awolowo saw the Fulani man, the northern, the outside, especially the Fulani man, for what they really are. But Zeke, even though he saw better, maybe because he was born in Zungeru, I don't know, or maybe because he was more international thinking, a nationalist, not a tribalist, as some people say. Maybe that is why he said, well, let's stay together. There is power in numbers. Let's bring our northern brothers, wherever they come from, and we make a larger lump. And it happened. And if not because of the issues that started right after the independence, those became governor general, unfortunately, Awolowo couldn't take it because he was supposed to be an opposition who could have come up next time and had a good case and ran an election and won. Many people wanted him. But since it didn't work for him at that time, he wanted to dabaru everything, as they said. But anyway, the white man, the colonialists, the British, turned against him, first of all, by giving him a slap. He expected to be the prime minister. Somehow, it wasn't going to work as Zeke was going to be the governor general, then another southerner to be the prime minister. So somehow. But after all those things, Nigeria moved on until we had the crisis during the Western election. Then the coup that was supposed to correct it. Then the coup that was supposed to correct the coup that came to correct. And then Biafra. Now, before Biafra, Gowon was on seat. And then Aburi came. But they didn't use Aburi. And then the pogrom continued, or genocide. Some call this genocide. The Igbo genocide in northern Nigeria. And then the East. I remember very clearly when Juku, the governor of Eastern Nigeria, then said that people should go back to where they live. I remember that. People should go back to where they live. And when they went back, they were further massacred. People who survived the first pogrom did not survive the second one. And so that by the time Aburi has been conducted, there was so much pain on the eastern and the eastern region. They were really should have been appealed to or appeased, but they were being continuously poked to get out. And you can't even say they were poked as such because they were running for their lives. So when people left the federal government positions they had in Kano and came back to the east, people who left other places, Lagos and all whatnot, came back to their home in the east. There was, this pain and agony. Their pay were not being sent and all whatnot. And then General Gowon decided to divide Nigeria into 12 states, creating 3 states out of the eastern region, thereby making Ojukwu nonsensical or irrelevant, or planning, that. And so when that happened, you don't blame Ojukwu, who called on the people and say, well, I'm the governor of this place, and this is what has happened. This is what General Gowon has done. What do you want me to do? The record shows that the people say, based on our experience, declare the state of Biafra. Let us be independent. And if we can't be working in Nigeria as confederations, the federation is no more working. Let us go independent. That's the history, the summary of the history of the coming of Biafra.
Thank
And
you very
so
much.
in 1966, May, I think 27, the states were created, 12 states were created, and I think 3 days or 4 later, there was a meeting, and on the 30th of March, the state of Biafra was declared by the people's mandate.
Thank you
Well,
very much.
okay.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Like I've said, we all know after the declaration, the federal government will take it that they were going to make sure they bring back Biafra. I can tell you that then and even now, some people wouldn't go for Biafra if there was security. This same security issue we are still talking about. There was no security. People in Lagos were running away, running back. I remember that I was a young lad that had passed secondary school exams to go to King's College, Lagos. But they said we couldn't go. Then schools used to start in January and end in December. They said we couldn't go for the interview. And I was pained because I was seeing myself as a little Lagos boy who was going to grow up a Lagos boy. In those days, things like that. I was born in Enugu, and that's where I grew up. So Lagos was not there, the North was not there, and Biafra came to be. So the federal government said they're going to pull back Biafra by force, and 6 days police action, and the rest of it. But the war began somewhere in the northeastern part of Biafra, which is around about Ogoja. Gakem. Gakem is the name of the city where the Nigerian federal troops struck, either maybe the first or maybe the second or among the first. And that was the first time I heard the name of that town, Gakem. And then near Obudu, Ogoja, or northeastern Biafra, if you know the map, you can see it behind me. Then somewhere in Obolek-Obolafo in the east, in the northwest side of Biafra, the war started. And joke, people started dying. The soldiers started coming home and all that, and casualties. I was told once that my uncle, who was an engine driver, was killed. I knew that man as a very jovial and kind man. And at the age of 12, or thereabouts, it felt very painful. So we went to Enugu railways, my mother, I believe, to see if he had come back. We were going almost every day. People were coming home, beaten, injured. Corpses were coming home, and we saw a lady that her stomach was broken, was cut open, and the child was hanging just right there. That killed me. It was gruesome. And so by the next day we came, luckily we saw my uncle. My mother was very happy. But then there are other people too. We cried and did all kinds of things. And so that was what brought my awareness to the issue of Biafra.
Let me ask you something before we let me clarify something. So what you are saying is that the first shot that started this war was fired by the Nigerian military in Akem, somewhere in Akem near Ogoja side. Gakem, near Ogoja side.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt about that. Nobody who knows about the war argues about that. Biafra did not. Biafra obviously couldn't be shooting at you. Their barracks was in Benue, was in Makurdi, or places like that. So if they had a tactical headquarters or something, must have come down, stay within that Nigerian place. And that war, that first shot, as you called it, started from that area in the territory of former Eastern Nigeria, in the territory of now declared Biafra. So they had to defend.
Okay.
The Biafran soldier, the Biafran command had to defend the territorial integrity of that Biafra.
Wow. So it's very, very clear that Nigeria was the first that started this war to get Biafran because Biafra declared their independence, and then
Yes.
Nigeria started the war to bring them
Yes.
by force into
The
Nigeria
head of
again.
state, the head of state of
Okay.
Nigeria at that time, General Gowon, declared so-called police action. And that is action. That is going in by force. That is force. And when they got there, they didn't go with police, of course, they went with the army.
I mean,
And then when they came and saw resistance, then they increased their pressure. So, like I said, that's, plus all the other things happening at the rear, and the war started. And we started seeing soldiers coming, all, the war thing began to happen. We started seeing injured
and
soldiers.
and this war continued from July 6, 1967, and ended January 15, 1970. Now,
Yes.
this police action, which they say they will do for 6 days or 6 months, lasted for 3 years. So,
They said
in order
6 years,
for the
6 days.
6
Less than
days,
1
okay,
week. Less than
from
1 week. Because
less
they
than 1
didn't
week
count,
action.
they did not count on Biafran resistance as much. Because there are so many things that happened. The Biafrans had sent back northern soldiers of northern extraction, with their guns. The Nigerians sent back to the eastern soldiers without their guns. And they know that Biafra did not. This is some of the things that pains me. You try to deal with somebody, using soft hand, they're using hammer on you. Biafra was not designed to happen, but it was forced on the people of Eastern Nigeria of that time. Because the reason I say Eastern Nigeria is wasn't the only Igbos. The Calabar people were being killed, the Efiks, the Bibius, the Ogonis, the Jaws, the Shekiris, and all that. All the people from Eastern region were being murdered. And when they came down and agreed to secede, to be independent of Nigeria so that they can defend themselves, since Nigeria could not do that. The same thing that is happening today, that they will now form a system that will protect their interests, their property, and their lives. That's all. And so the Nigerian government said, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. We'll be killing you and you're going to stay here until we finish you. Which, if you look at it and join it with Fulani doctrine to dump the Atlantic in the Atlantic, the Quran, you wonder, is it not what is still happening today? Christians are being killed in the north. They are now being killed in the south. I was talking to somebody just yesterday. I said, well, you people from Plateau were used as soldiers to come and beat up on Biafrans, Nigeria, Igbos, Efik, and the rest of them, Ogoja. But look at what is happening to you now. I said, my brother, I'm really sorry. If there's a way I can tell you guys sorry. I said, no, it's not about sorry. Go out there and fight for yourself. General Danjuma, retired, has said it to you. He's one of you. He's a Christian, and he knows what happened, and he knows why the rotation of presidency didn't reach him, but reached Buhari twice. That's another caveat.
Yes.
Danjuma was more important in the issue of Nigeria, whether it's during the war, whether it's before the war, whether it's after the war, than Buhari. But Buhari had a shot at the presidency. Buhari had a second shot at the presidency. Danjuma didn't get a shot. Danjuma. So think about it, because he's a Christian.
But even though they rewarded him with some oil wells.
But I can guarantee you that if you asked him to dump the oil well and be seated in Aso Rock, he would choose Aso Rock.
Oil well in Biafra land.
Okay, so
yeah.
Now, and the war started. I remember I couldn't we were asked to select any federal government, federal college or rather government colleges in the Eastern region. Then we had Government College Afibo, Government College Umuahia, Government College Owerri, Government College Port Harcourt, and the Queen's College for the girls in Enugu. So, of course, my father wanted me to go to Umuahia. I didn't want it. I wanted to go to Port Harcourt, Port High Life. Somehow, I accepted. I had to go to Umuahia for about. By then, it was a month or so, but the war had already started. You know, that was somewhere in July. You know, and when we got there, they told us that they're about to shut down the school because the war, fear. I think they had a couple of air raids, plane bombing, and the school shut down. So I went back to Enugu, and we saw the army youngsters, doing their fatigue and everything. We had been scout, boys company, boys brigade, and the rest. So we joined them. We just followed them behind and all that. This is middle 1967. In the process, remember, it's psychological development and growth and looking at what is happening. And we were being told that what was that to say? They want your money, they want your money, not your prosperity. Biafra, be vigilant. And it was ringing in my head. My mind was like, look, if these guys are going to come and kill us, I have seen what they did regarding, the refugees coming back. So if they're going to march down here and kill us, we might as well join the army and whatever. Of course, nobody was considering us in the army sense. But we were always going to the barracks, and they gave us food, they gave us this, money, everything. And we went home. One time I didn't go home. So I stayed with them. And I saw there were boys doing parade at night. I joined them. I was very good with parade and everything. I was what do they call it now, in boys company and in scout and what have you. Parade was nothing to me. Started joining them. One of my friends, I saw him dissembling the shibareta that he had, one of the guns he had. And I told him I can do it. He said, are you sure? I said, he took the magazine out. It's okay. Triple and assemble. I tripled it. I assembled it. He said, you make a good soldier. I don't forget that statement. I was there. Nobody, we can't even go and stand in the line because they wouldn't even look at you. People who are older and taller and more huger than us were being rejected for one reason or the other. So one day they said we should go to Ugogonike, somewhere close to Enugu, near Abanike, somewhere there. I didn't know the places, I just followed the wave and we went there. Anyway, I ended up in the boys' company of the Biafran army at the time. I remember once that I won't go into all this. You get my book and you read it and you see all that.
That's okay. What I'm taking away is you voluntarily wanted to join the Nigerian army because you don't want just like you and so many other Biafran males and females. Most of them voluntarily just join want to join the Biafran army, even when their age is still not acceptable at even a younger age. And then you ended up in the boys' company.
Yeah, I wasn't conscripted. I wasn't conscripted because I wasn't even qualified. So question of conscription was not at the time I joined the forces. I was not there, but they created this boys' company thing. I didn't know what was happening anywhere was happening. I just know that one day, as we finished our our exercise and practice and everything, Major Nzogu, I didn't know him then. He came there and addressed us. The last thing I heard was that you are the leaders of tomorrow. I didn't forget that. But it was later when he left in the evening when we went for our ration, our food, and somebody was saying that because then I think he had become a colonel or something. They say he's coming. They are going to go to Suka. I said, well, they said they were going through that road. I don't know how the road was then, but now I know that it's the road that goes to Opi. It's the road from Emene to Opi. you know. I said, okay. Excitement, we went with them. That was much later, around September. So after when we got there, something has happened because the people who were supposed to, everywhere was dead. I've never been to war before. I don't know how it looks now. I just know I stayed in that Land Rover with Lieutenant Okechukwu. And again, like I said, some of these things should be read in the book.
Okay,
So
Ken, let me say one or two things. Let me want to go into the other question that I have for you. I still have about 6 or 7 questions for you. And listeners, I want to thank you for joining us today. Today, like I told you in the beginning, we are listening to Keny I'nugo, our public analyst specializing in media psychology and public policy, dissecting, giving us more information about the Nigerian-Biafran Civil War, which started from July 6, 1967 and ended January 15, 1970, where Nigeria was the first to shoot the gun. They are the first to shoot. So continuing, Mr. Keny I'nugo, our media psychology and public policy analyst, who supported Nigeria and Biafra during that war? Which country supported Nigeria and which country supported Biafra?
Well, you're going to get into a labyrinth right now. But that mesh is okay because the truths are there. Britain was the colonialists. They were the colonial masters to Nigeria, and they were not in for a separation. Because the first people that wanted to, or rather maybe the northern Nigeria who first wanted to secede from Nigeria and would have, but it was recorded that the British said, how can you do that? You are landlocked and you will not be able to do very well if they blockade you. So why don't, if Nigeria blockades you, meaning east and west? And they turned back. That's why, as they said, they came back and staged the counter coup of May 1966.
Of July.
July, excuse me. July 29 is when they killed that Buronson. So you can now see that the whole thing turned around because of the advice of the British government. Along the line, it is also said that China had offered to supply Biafra weapons. China wasn't as strong as it is today. Nobody was taking China seriously in international geopolitics. So it would have been foolhardy. People will say, nah, Biafra would have, should have. But that was then. It's not now. We don't know what we know now. China was a third world country at that time.
Yeah.
It's a superpower today. Yeah. So people should gauge things or assess things or analyze things based on the time, not just what you have at the time you're making the assessment or analysis. Now, so Britain for sure supported. Soviet Union supplied a number of weapons. In fact, it's this Ukraine that had more of. I later found out that it was these Ukrainians that were both the pilots and this thing as part of Soviet Union.
Okay.
That came to fight. Yes, they were part of Soviet Union.
Fighting for Nigeria, fighting with Nigeria.
Fighting for Nigeria, coming in as Russian, as a Soviet Union pilots. They had Egyptian pilots, Libyan pilots. They had those ones are there, but the planes and what have you came from Soviet Union. And Soviet Union we are talking about is Ukraine, because Ukraine was part of Soviet Union in 1967, 68, 69, until recently, after Gorbachev came in and made decision to divide in divest Russia of his, tentacles, including Ukraine. Okay, so Biafra had no help but her own ingenuity. The Biafran engineers went to work and started developing different types of weapons and other arsenals, including the most popular Ogbunigwe, which in Igbo language is, is an Igbo word, but it means in English, killer of plenty, and it kills just like that. It was a scary thing for the Nigerian soldiers and all whatnot. Anyway, I believe that it's obvious. So many things have been declassified. People know now that it was Britain primarily and some other, actually something I read much later was that Nixon was against, President Nixon of the United States was against that war at that time. But the hand of American government was tied to the Vietnam War. So you can't leave your home and go facing what is out there. I read that somewhere. And it has not been debunked, really. But Nigeria-Biafra had its own, those who procured, very smaller quantities and weapons, materials, uniforms, and what have you. But then when under the advice of the finance minister then, Chief Awolowo, that blockade, hunger is part of war, that they should blockade Biafran seaports or, coastal line and stop Biafra from getting massive supplies, that it will have, and they did. It was very, very effective because now we have to rely on plain supplies, which is always iffy, not like now you can have almost a whole ship on the air with 2 or 3 planes, big jumbo planes. So it was all these forces with Nigeria that fought Biafra with no help, no serious supply. You had a couple of mercenaries here, Captain Major George, Captain whoever, they had like a few of them in Biafra. I can't remember their names, but I know they are in the book. So the supporters of the Nigerians, even just Nigerian troops, well trained and well armed, would have done the job. With Nigeria, with Biafran hands tied behind, blockade, and then no weapons. But Biafra survived, not for 3 days, not for 3 weeks, but for 3 years. And they should know that it didn't stop there, because what is happening right now is calling for the same survival mentality on the side of Biafrans or Igbos or former Easterners. It's hard to really pin it down how the right way to call this segment of Nigeria. If you call it just the Igbos, it's not only Igbos, the FX, the Bibios, the Jaws, the Ogonis, and what have you, people from that area. That's why they created Southeast to be people that are only Igbos. But then look at the boundary adjustments, always disfavoring the Igbos. If you go to the Midwest, what do you call it now? Delta. Some Igbos are cut into Kogi. You go to Enugu, some are cut into Benue. You go and so on, all around. Southeast is not what it should be. That is why today, people on the western side of the River Niger are itching to come to their brothers in the other side of the river. That is part of what injustice the Igbos are experiencing in Nigeria, which is why They are saying, well, you said we must come back. We are back. But what are the modalities of living together?
Let me go back to this what was discovered, what research and production during the Nigerian-Biafran war in the Biafran side. Apart from the Ogbunigwe and others, Biafrans were able to be refining their own oil. They're not using this Western system to refine. They have their own system of refining oil. They're also using like coconut to be driving the vehicle, the liquid from coconut, and having palm oil itself. So they came out with so many ways to survive, so many surviving, innovations. They developed so many other things in Biafra. That is one thing I want you to also note, that apart from the Ogbunigwe, they invented so many other things during that war in the Biafran nation.
Yes. We talked about the Ogbunigwe because it was war, and the Ogbunigwe was a war thing. But when you come out from Ogbunigwe, you have to talk about the system, okay? The other thing, the civilians. The civilians had to eat food. People I remember they started planting school football fields, and the nearer the houses, the flowers, and so many different foods were developed and they call it research and production. So they continued research, and research was definitely a helping part of the crusade, the effort, the Biafran effort. So there, like you said, petroleum was obvious to be produced through petrol was to produce through petroleum. There was still AFAM power station. There was still the Port Harcourt refinery at the beginning of the war. But by the time you come into 1968, and so Port Harcourt had fallen, Calabar is gone, Ogoja, there were no places where you can get some of the Biafra had to fight in some areas. I remember a place called Owaza. I remember Owaza. The fight there when they needed to penetrate and get crude oil, and that's for the production of petrol and the rest of them. They manufactured clothes. They manufactured food, different types of food, and like I've said before, all kinds of weapons added to what they were able to glean from mercenaries and other people who supplied weapons. And the people's mindset, in fact, at a point in time in 1969, if I'm not mistaken, General Ojukwu had gone to a place near Ahiara, and that place he made a declaration of what appeared to be, SAP, what Nigeria called SAP, which is tighten your belt because we are at war. And people, not to have this number of land, this number of clothes, this number of cars, this, and so on and so forth. That declaration is called, it was called the Ahiara Declaration. Yes, you can look it up.
So let me add one more thing before we go on, because we're gonna be running now to close on time. This A&C blockade that prevented ships from bringing goods into the Biafran nation led to a lot of hunger, especially malnutrition amongst the children, that led to Kwashiorkor. That you see a lot of children then protruding their stomach because of lack of electrolytes and nutrients required for the child. Do you see that as part of the reason that the war ended the way it ended?
It's difficult to say yes, but it's difficult to say no, because those who instituted it know what they were doing. And it's not like today where propaganda, propaganda was there. Nigeria had the most efficient propaganda machine in the British
Especially
government.
with BBC megaphone.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. With the British government via the BBC. And BBC, even in Nigeria, was taken as all of it. They know it, they have it, all the information, everything. And propaganda is a powerful weapon of war. So when you show pictures of people who have Kwashiorkor protruded stomachs and skinny hands and legs as sticks, first of all, on the one hand, they will curry favor. We make some people say, "Oh, why is this?" and all that. But on the other hand, some people will say, "Oh, if that is the case, then let's." Some people will say, "Let's stop this war and bring back Biafra to Nigeria and all whatnot." All that emotion came to play. And those that ran the affairs of Biafra, because we always say Ojukwu, 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 but he wasn't Ojukwu all by himself. You had Effiong, who was his second. You had Madebo, who was army commander, and so many of them. So the Biafran government saw, and like I said, wrote plenty in the book. I remember just before about this time in Aba, along that Aba-Owerri road, somebody stood there, a major. They were talking, and I was just sitting there. He said he was stamping on his foot on that road, Aba Umuahia Road. We had just finished coming out from Umuahia, lost Umuahia, recovered Owerri, and then now thinking of going on either returning to Umuahia or going back to take Aba. He says the Nigerian troops are now on Aba Umuahia Road. That night we left that area, and the next morning they were in that school. I remember that school, Musulu Training Depot. I think it was a school of higher education school. I don't know what it is now, but I know it was a training depot for the Biafrans, and we stayed close to the bush, close to there, as we are one of the battalions that I served on. Was in. So that particular experience made people weak. Made some people angry, and made some people even more determined to dig in and say, it's either I am free, give me freedom, or give me death.
Wow. Now, let me ask you, after Nigeria succeeded in the surrender of the Biafran nation to come back to be part of Nigeria by force, and they have this no victor, no vanquish. Was this no victor, no vanquish maintained? Was there a victor and was there a vanquished, in your own opinion?
Well, in my own opinion, the Biafran war was awkward, very awkward. And so it was good that Gowon said no victor, no vanquished. There are so many issues. Should Ojukwu have left or shouldn't he have left? Was he going to sit there and the army has crumbled? I can testify to that because I was going home. I was walking home from Aba, if you know where Aba is and where Onitsha area is, where I come from. It's some long distance walking. There was total disorganization. People knew 12th division was totally disorganized. As a matter of fact, it has been assigned. The battalions or brigades have been assigned to other, and 12th division was in charge of that Aba. And there had been other issues in 12th division before this issue. Okay, so Biafra, if he had some help at all, I think he would have stood the time, considering what he has done already. On the other side, Nigerians keep saying, they were merciful, they were not wanting to kill everybody. And what are you talking about? You were fighting a war. You were killing people. As for the air raids, they were coming and bombing. Your long range, these things were going into places where only civilians were. You weren't hitting.
They were bombing refugee camps. They were bombing hospitals. They were bombing marketplaces. They were bombing everywhere. So what else do they want? They were killing everybody everywhere, and they're saying that they're not. Their intention is not to kill everybody, but they are killing everybody. They did not follow the United Nations War
Rules of
Convention
engagement.
in that war.
Rules of engagement. No, you see,
Exactly.
when you win a war, you can say anything. When you
That's true.
win war, you can say anything.
That's
If you
correct.
didn't win, then there will be people will now, that's why it took me this long. I know how old I am now. You can imagine how old I was during the war, and then how many years after. I don't think I'm not afraid of anything right now, but I know I was afraid of something sometime. The reason I'm saying it that way is that it's the truth. This book would have been written no more than 20 years ago. All the materials were there. There's nothing new except confirmation of what I already know. Just the other day, former President Buhari, Babangida wrote a book that clarified so many things. The list of which was, like you said, it wasn't an Igbo coup. Some people say it was the coup that started the war. First of all, it wasn't the coup in my mind. Even if it was the coup, it wasn't an Igbo coup. Put that one aside. I just talked about Buhari being giving an
You're talking about the January 1966 coup, the first coup.
Yes, that's the one I'm talking about. That first coup that we had, the coup that brought Aguiyi to power. He wasn't a part of the coup, as they said, but the thing fell on him and he took it. He didn't run away like Brigadier Gundipe that ran away instead of taking over after Aguiyi. Because if Gundipe had taken the position at that time, the Northerners would not have had the overriding authority and power and expanded, influence in Nigeria, because they were running away. They were ready to secede. And all of a sudden, they saw there was this power vacuum.
Okay.
And they filled it and kept feeling it and kept feeling it. And they became comfortable with nobody challenging them. The only people who challenged them before was the Igbos, and they were out of the equation, and they have been, decimated and brought down to level of to capitulation, basically, just so that their generations will continue. And then, I don't blame the man though, because the way it was set up, they probably would have killed him too. So maybe that is his, mathematics. And so he left and became High Commissioner for Nigeria in Britain.
So what you are saying is that the Biafran nation were the vanquished and the Nigerian nation were the victor after the war as part of the settlement. That victor, no vanquish, is not true. That what we have seen since the end of the war up till now shows that the Nigerian government is the victor, and then the Biafran people are the vanquished. There's no doubt about that.
I want to put it this way. I'm not going to talk about victor. I'm not going to talk about vanquished. I didn't make the statement. That's what General Gowon, the head of state of Nigeria and commander-in-chief, said. But that, in my mind, my thinking is that he said it so people won't go gloating and say, "Oh, we are the victors. We crushed them," like somebody said they crushed Biafra. But Biafra is still there. It's an elephant in your living room. Biafra is still there. Some people say, "Don't." That was the time you don't even mention the word Biafra. I remember Abu Banku, an editor, a writer of the Renaissance or Daily Star in the days in Enugu. He was arrested for calling. I think he wrote something that said "killing Biafra," because there is, I think some people. In short, the name Biafra was anathema at the time. And like I said, that was part of why, even though it would have been another level of book if I had written it 20, 30, 40 years ago. But we can say Biafra today and comfortably disagree with Biafra idea and comfortably support it where we think it's okay, because the guns of war, the smoke, the whatever emotions that will be kicked up as a result of the mention of the word Biafra has subsided, at least. So I'm not talking victor, I'm not talking vanquish, but I'll talk RRR, 3 R's: reconciliation, rehabilitation, and reconstruction. Some of them happened. We saw reconstruction, Taylor Woodrow in those days and the other ones too. Rehabilitation to some extent, but if what was done in 1972, if I'm not mistaken, was rehabilitation, if I bring in $10,000, naira, 10 pounds, it was pounds then. If I bring 10,000 pounds, you give me 20 pounds. I bring 1 million pounds, you give me 20 pounds, and so on. I'm sure nobody took to the bank 20 pounds. People took 100 pounds, 200, 300, 500, 1,000, 2,000, and hundreds and hundreds. The Biafrans had money before the war. So after the war, you decided that to rehabilitate them, you will give everybody 20. He killed my father. I remember my father was just sitting like this. All my money. He gave him high blood pressure. I was younger then, but I know a few things at the time. And no, there was, I'm not going to call them victim, but neither am I going to call the other one vanquished, because they weren't particularly vanquished. They just gave up. Say, okay, you want this thing. If you get it, there is peace. Here you go, take it. Now make this is what they have made of it. It's even worse now. The peace, one Nigeria, is a laughing matter. The president of Nigeria today knows that. Look at what is happening to him. Just the other day, a coup. 90% of the coup plotters, as they said, are Fulanis. There was no Southerner. Hello, 16 people who planned a coup, all of them were from one segment of against him. Well, my people usually say, leave them to sort it out. And yet they're not sorting out. They're still calling IPOB, they're still calling NDIBO. Something I think I sent it to you. Let me not use what lady was going to, we're tired of these Igbos. Hello, I would be glad if you're tired of us. And say, go.
Exactly. Yes, that's right.
That's the solution. If I'm tired of you, it happens even in marriage. The wife or the husband will say, I'm tired of, go, or they'll walk away from. We walked away, they forced us back. No, you have to take care of us. Give us security. Right. Give us all those things that make for equitability.
That's correct. That's correct.
Freedom or death.
That's correct. Which means that war have not ended. From what is going on today, we don't have no seaport, we don't have no airport, we don't have no federal presence, we don't have any public federal hospital. I don't see any federal hospital in any of our region. I don't see major highways. I don't see any federal program, social program in our places. So, which means the war is still going on. In the current Nigerian government, an Igbo man is the 6th person. The deputy speaker in the National Assembly is an Igbo. The 6th Igbo man is, which means the war is still going on.
Yes,
what do you think about that?
The issue of marginalization cannot go untouched. When you talk about, the affairs, public affairs in Nigeria, public policy, because these are deliberate policies made to marginalize the Igbos. Well, some of them work against them. Some of those policies work against the federal government. Because right now, you can see that right after the coup, denied the coup attempt, that they rush an army officer, air commander now came to the Igbos. But there was none. The 3 arms, none. Yep. The chief commander of the none. Now they are making some army. Although before they started doing all that, This, remember, I mentioned it. There was a pogrom, accepted as a pogrom. But there are people who call it a genocide of the Igbos in northern Nigeria. And because it wasn't checked, it's an Igbo thing. Now, we have now seen Christians. It's now Christian genocide. I didn't do the examination. We call it that longest time. How did the Chibok thing came to be? The Chibok girls and the things of that nature. There are people who can't live. I don't want to personalize this stuff. I lived in Abuja for what? For about 7 years. 7 good years. I had an office. And all of a sudden, you were being still told the time when the General President Jonathan was running in 2004. What I saw showed me that there was still that's a very small word, talk acrimony, but hatred against the Igbos in that northern. Yes, they were bombed. Remember, there were all kinds of terrorist acts, and President Jonathan was working astutely to get rid of those. And then the day I really said, "Whoa, Nigeria is," when Jonathan said, "There is Boko Haram in the government." There's Boko Haram in the government. Yes, I remember clearly. Now, what does that mean? 2 or 3 of his ministers were the people supplying information, at least at that time, to Boko Haram. And they almost killed them. And he knew. That's why he stepped down. He was not defeated. I remember that there was a time when former President Buhari said, "It's either or." You know?
Yep.
Blood will do this and do that. Blood will do this and do that. Blood. If he doesn't become president this time. And then Jonathan said, "The blood of any one Nigerian is too much, more than my ambition to be president." He stepped down. But what are we talking about? Don't we know the truth?
It is truth. It is the truth.
No? Do you think that they defeated Jonathan? They did not. I worked in his campaign. And yes, he had problems. He had issues. He had areas where he really didn't get it right. And he himself accepted. But as far as the campaign, I mean, the government, the best economy we had was during his time.
That's correct. You're right.
And since then, once Buhari got into office, he became president of the Fulani.
That's correct.
Anybody who will challenge, let's get the records and we can see. How could you go and disarm every Nigerian and then arm Boko Haram?
That's correct.
He's even known to be the head of Meiti Allah, a terrorist group that is recognized and is operating in Nigeria.
And he gave them 100 million.
No,
he gave them 100 million naira. He also started this idea of appointing only Fulani people, Northerners, in all the important positions in Nigeria. He started it, Buhari.
So
he was a Northern Nigerian.
What are we talking about? Now, when you think about this thing happening in 2025, don't forget that it was already happening in 1965.
That's true.
That was the reason why the Igbos know these things. The Biafrans knew these things, but they were patching it, managing it, until you couldn't. The Kaduna boys who were true Nigerians came. I don't want to call them coup plot. They just wanted to change the government so that we can move forward. But what do? We turned around and say, they are Igbos. I've always said that if you have 2 brothers or sisters who can take Nigeria to where it's supposed to be, let them go and be president and vice. I didn't quarrel too much, though I didn't like it because I know him, Shetima. When they say Muslim, I say people can practice their religion. All I want to see is effectiveness. And there was no evidence that Shetima was effective as governor, still having this terrorist support toga, and then you bring him to the federal level. Look at what he did at the United Nations. Your home is burning. In my language, they say, when your house is burning, your interest shouldn't be the rat or the rabbit. You know, where Nigeria is the way it is, and you are telling us at the World Forum, the first opportunity and only probably you have is to tell us that Palestinian. Hello, I have no problem with people speaking up for people, those who are downtrodden. Okay, that's another issue, because like a media psychologist, I know what the media has done. Why would the terrorists that came from Gaza, whoever they are, Palestinian or whoever, go to attack Israel on the day they were vulnerable, this holiday, vacation, something? Go and face the army. If you are fighting against the army, even if you took a plane into this, military unit, that's what they signed for. But people who were vacationing, obviously no guns, no protection, no defense. You went there, killed some, took some hostage. We are still talking about them till today. And that is what is more important to you than people who, in fact, I just heard that there's this bishop that they just kidnapped, or rather is missing for the past, 4 days, 3 days, just because he came out and said, call the shots. I mean, they called a spade, that, the Fulani land grabbers. These are land grabbers, because there are different types of, you have land grabbers, you have just people killing, these marauders and what have you, making life uncomfortable for people. You see them, you know that they are going to do this. At the night, you won't sleep because you have to keep watch. They say that they want your money, not your prosperity. Be vigilant.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keny I'nugo, our public analyst specializing in media psychology and public policy, for joining us today. We are very, very happy. Our listeners, our followers, the Igbo race, Biafrans and Africans, everybody is happy that you're here today with all the information you have bombarded us with today. We appreciate you and we thank you for coming, and we shall be bringing this lecture to an end so that we can do other things today. But before we close it down, before we end this lecture today, what is your last word? What is your summary of the Nigerian-Biafran war, and what should the Igbo man do in order to make sure that he is surviving the way Nigeria is today? What will the Igbo race do? What will Biafrans do to make sure that they are surviving in this situation that we find ourselves after being killed, having been marginalized, having been punished, after been militarized our zone everywhere? What advice are you going to give our people in order to be able to be surviving in the current situation that we find ourselves?
Well, thank you. One of the advice I'll give them is to support this program, support this presentation, support this podcast, because not just me, I don't know it all. Other people will be coming. I would like for us to invite other people who have other ideas on ways to make peace in Nigeria. And where there is no peace, to let people go in peace, not in pieces. Then I ask them to pray that they be together. Because the worst thing is that you're fighting out there and winning, and you go home and you're scattered. Whatever it is that is causing insecurity in the south, in the southeast, in Igbo, get rid of it. It's not helping you. IPOB was included as a terrorist organization for the simple reason that it's an Igbo organization. IPOB is no worse than Oduduwa, Sony, OPC, and the rest of them, and Ariwa. Put them at the same level. Where you put Ariwa and they put IPOB there. I don't belong to IPOB. I'm not even bothered about that. Because like I just said, I paid my dues. I paid my dues. If Biafra had continued, I'll be a retired general today. No doubt about it. That aside, when you come to Igbo, Igbo, remember that when you have enemies left, right, and center, you watch your life. Pray. Igbos are not Christians. I practice the tradition of my people, custom and culture. No man can take it away from me. But that doesn't mean that I'm a Christian, full-fledged Christian, from choir boy, Sunday school, whatever, to where I am now as an apostle of the Lord Jesus Christ. So I have it here, I have it there, and I've experienced them, and I can guarantee you, any which way you bring it, I can defend my faith. So, people of Igbo race, anywhere and everywhere, be careful. My father
Thank
said,
you very much. Go ahead.
When you are great, you attract hatred. People who will just hate you for the simple fact that you are excellent, because you are up there. Don't mind them. Keep praying, keep pushing, keep moving forward. My father also say, if you don't agree, you will, in the inner confines of your thinking, you will agree that this is true. So I thank God that what we suffered in 1967, 66, the middle is being seen other places, especially in the middle belt, where most of Nigerian troops came from to go and Now they came and saw Nandi, we didn't finish. We are still here. And then when the war ended, they systematically sent us away. But that was God's work. Because I'm sure that if Nigeria was okay for us, we would have, people like me will have no business going abroad. What for? I was bright enough to go to the Oxford, any school you can imagine. But it wasn't there for me. When they were doing their bursary award, I tried my own. I went to Nigeria for it. I didn't get it. That's marginalization, discrimination, inequality. But Nigerians know very well that Igbos are egalitarian. We're talking about government programs. And I was in Nigeria for 15 years between the period I left here in 1969, in 2006 or thereabout, came back 2021. I went into the system to understand how it works from Aso Rock to wherever.
Wonderful.
And yes, I can tell you that. I know how many times I was appointed a director in one of the establishments. But once that Keny I'nugo came up, boom. Well, you come back the next time, the next time. And that was it. Before I knew it, that phase is gone. But what I'm saying again is, my friend also say, strengthen yourself. The Bible says, and David encouraged himself. Encourage yourself. Encourage those who say, yeah, no. Igbos are not them. Igbo are not them. So I've been around. I've been around the block a number of times. Here in Houston, where we live, Nigerian Foundation, Igbo People's Congress. We formed the Igbo People's Congress for the purpose of gelling the Igbos, not for anything against anybody for that matter. Igbo IPC, Igbo People's Congress, is the grandfather of World Igbo Congress. And their aim is to bring peaceful involvement of Igbo people in the affairs of Nigeria. Because they are citizens. And the benefit of citizenship is participation. It's another matter. So we leave it at that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Keny I'nugo, our public analyst who specializes in media psychology and public policy, for coming today to educate us. I'm telling you, I am very happy of the information you are coming from you, and our listeners are too. Thank you very much for joining us today, and have a very, very good day as we bring down this lecture today. We shall be coming together again next Tuesday or thereabouts for another exciting lecture. Thank you very much, Mr. Keny I'nugo, and have a very, very good day. Thank you for coming, sir.
You have a good one. Enjoy your week, and everybody.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
Thank you very much, our listeners. We have been listening to Keny I'nugo, a public analyst specializing in media psychology and public policy, dissecting and giving us information on the what happened in Nigeria-Biafra War of 1967 to 1970. And in his concluding remark, he was encouraging you to support this university, support Nkoloma Wisdom University, support IPOB, support anything that will make the Igbo man to be successful and independent of the British colonialism. And with this, we shall be bringing this lecture to an end. Please like, share, and comment, and also join us, subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit the bell button for notification, and also go back to our previous lectures at Nkoloma Wisdom University, and you will not regret, so that you can enjoy all the education, all the packages we have for you on our podcast. Thank you very much for joining us, and have a good day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.